Yeah, thanks so much for taking the time. It's such a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, good. Well, thanks for listening.
Um, Listen, you have a very long history with orchestras, with working with orchestras, but I was wondering, when working with such iconic songs that have been part of the like pop cultural songbook worldwide for so long, how do you approach working on those songs with an orchestra?
With great disrespect. Um, Usually, when an orchestrator takes a pop song and orchestrates it, they're usually very faithful, and you don't really get the power of the orchestra because they're trying to play it the pop way. So, with great love and disrespect in my heart, I've taken these songs and fucked them all up. Um, I didn't begin with this intention. Um, it came about because I made a movie called Everyone Stares, and it was made of film that I shot back in the day with my Super 8 camera, and I shot all this 52 hours of footage of the band rising up all the way up to the stadiums, and but forgot about the film because Super 8, you can't do it, you can't edit it, you can't do anything with it, and every time you look at it, you're scratching it. So I forgot about it, and then one day they invented computers, and with computers, I could digitize that footage and edit it all day. So I made this movie, and the music for that movie was obviously needed to be police music. And so, as a 20 years as a film composer, taught me how you use music to help the story. But Sting didn't write film music. Roxanne doesn't take a left; it charges forward. But the movie takes a left. So I had to go and I had to cut up the police songs to match the changes in the movie. And once I got the knife out, the orgy began. And I just, because I got the multi tracks of the studio albums, I got multi tracks of live concerts and improvisations, jams that we did. And I cut all these different elements together wrongly to create these, derangements. Arrangements would be too nice a word, so I call them derangements. And they came about in service of the film, but actually have kind of a cool logic of their own. And so, I played, shows in Germany with orchestra before, and but I played a couple of police songs with no singers, just instrument orchestrally, and they had such an impact that I figured, why not do them with singers and do the songs that everybody knows? And one reason for not doing that is because artists are very afraid of looking backwards. It's not a good look to be going backwards. But this year I had a brand new opera premiered in Italy, The Witch's Seed. And the year before that, I had a brand new opera, The Electric Saint, opened at the Deutsche National Theater, one of the fanciest opera companies in the world. So I'm very confident of my forward motion, which allows me the luxury of looking over my shoulder. And I'm quite happy to look backwards because I'm very much going forwards. And that gives me comfort in looking backwards. So I'm happy. And by the way, there's another good reason, which is that audiences love these songs. And I've played it all over America, and I played it in Europe as well. And it burns down the house every night. It's you recognize the hooks and the hits. And I have three soul sisters, three women on the mic singing them. And it never fails. It's a really guaranteed show, which is just a lot of fun to play because I walk out on stage knowing that we're going to have a big time.
So from what you just described, it sounds like you were using like a collage kind of technique, almost like a cut-up technique when you're working with the original.
Absolutely.
Track.
Yeah. It's very cut up. I don't cut up all the songs. Some of them, like Message in a Bottle, is like a diamond. You can't cut it. You can't. It just is there, and and I've done things texturally with the sound using the orchestra, but the form, verse, chorus, is the same form as the original, just with with an orchestra instead of guitar, bass, and drums. But some of them I deranged good.
Now, obviously, we were talking about songs that have a lot of groove in them, a lot of offbeats and stuff. I was wondering, how do you with classically trained musicians? Is it easy to get them to play those kind of grooves, those kind of offbeats, the way?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all you have to do is put it on the page. The beautiful thing about orchestra orcs is that they are very loyal to what they see on the page. If I put an articulation, they will play it. If I put a wrong note, they will play it. If I put a really great note, they'll play that too. And so on the score, I not only have what notes they should play, but also how they should play them. And a melody isn't da 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 da, it's da 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 da, and you've got to put all that on the page. And it doesn't matter whether they've ever heard a reggae record or not. If it's on the page, they'll play it.
So it's all about doing the homework and then giving that to
them. Exactly. It's all about the homework. And then when I show up, I rehearse for a couple of hours. They read it off the page, and we can play a show that night. That's the other miracle. My rock and roll buddies cannot believe it, that I can play with a new orchestra every night. And just 2 hours rehearsal, rock band does a 2-hour sound check, and they've been playing the song, and if they, to get a new show together, it takes 6 weeks. The Police, actually, we rehearsed for 4 months. God knows what we were doing all that time, mostly shouting at each other and then hugging and kissing and singing and dancing in the evening while after shouting at each other all day. Maybe that's why it took 4 months. But with the orchestra, 2.5 hours and we're ready for a show.
And when you're playing, obviously you're playing with different orchestras depending on the location where you tour.
Yeah.
Is there
I pull into Atlanta. I play with the Atlanta Symphony. They're fantastic orchestra. I pull into Seattle or Nashville or anywhere, or Bremen or Frankfurt. And actually, I have a great luxury in Germany. I will have the same orchestra for 2 shows. We'll be on tour.
It's amazing. And is there like a discernible difference, like an acoustical difference when you play with one orchestra and then you play with the other orchestra? Do you hear notable differences?
Yes, I notice, but the audience would never notice. I notice certain things like the first trumpet. Wow. In Milwaukee Symphony, the first trumpet is like, where did they find this guy? He's amazing. He takes that trumpet solo in Spirits in the Material World and just, wow, he's playing exactly what's on the page, but somehow with a flair, with a feel that's just super, and then we play, I don't want to name any names, some other orchestra where the first trumpet, he's playing what's on the page, but without any kind of panache. And so, yes, they all have, it adds up to a wonderful thing. When he's playing Mendelssohn, that trumpet player kills it. But reading a new chart, some orchestras are better at a new chart than others. For instance, one thing I've discovered is that student orchestras always give me great performances because they have much more rehearsal. They're better prepared than the 2.5 hour guys.
And how about your playing in the context of an orchestra?
I just go apeshit crazy. I play any damn thing. And the reason I can do that is because I know exactly where they will be. They are a solid platform, which allows me to play it differently every night.
So you didn't have to adapt a playing style or like a certain...
Yes. In general, yes, a very big adaptation. The instrument, the drum set, is designed for high volume to compete with gigantic amplifiers. The orchestra is an acoustic instrument, much quieter. When you're sitting in the concert hall, it feels as powerful. It has the same emotional, dramatic impact as a rock band, and you don't even notice that it's 1/10 of the volume. And so I have to adjust my equipment and my technique to make that change. And I've discovered a few things. When it's so much quieter, I can use a much more variety of cymbals, quieter cymbals. Instead of looking for the loudest crash, I look for the quickest decay and other things. And so I was, the equipment is different. Another thing is that the drums sound so much better when I'm not killing them. Believe it or not, drums can sing, drums can love, if you're not killing them. And so the sound of the drums. Another thing is the technique. I can use all kinds of technique that I learned as a kid, but never used in a rock band because you can't hear them. So the technique is much more, the vocabulary is much wider. And one more thing, nobody gets a headache.
But you're also playing guitar on some songs.
Yeah, a couple of songs, you know, kind of, you know, big E, A, and D chords. And, you know, it's just mostly for the schwang of it.
Well, I think a couple of months ago, I've talked to your colleague of the Police, Andy Summers, and he talked about when you started, when the punk movement kind of forbid people to be virtuosos. And he said he couldn't play a certain way, so we had to invent a certain different kind of way to play. And I was wondering, did you feel the same way? Because obviously you were an accomplished musician from the beginning. And did the punk movement back then made you not play in a certain way?
Yeah, Andy's absolutely correct about that. The rules of punk, it was supposed to be anarchy. It was supposed to be the revolution, but like with any revolution, the rules are very strict. Thou shalt not play a song for longer than 2.5 minutes. Thou shalt not play a guitar solo with chops. Thou shalt not sing love songs. And there were lots of, and we adopted these rules, this dogma, so that we could play in these clubs and have an audience to play to. It was a completely Machiavellian choice that we made to put on a uniform of convenience and have shows that we could play. Meanwhile, Andy could not be restrained. He had chops, and it didn't take long for the facade to melt away. In fact, there was a German composer who kind of gave us that permission. We discovered each other in Munich playing with Eberhard Schoner, where we sold him on the idea of, okay, because he has all these different eclectic ingredients, jazz, Olaf Kubler on saxophone, jazz, and he had ballet dancers and all these, and he said, how about punk band, Eberhard? And so he said, cool. And, but since he didn't really have much of an idea that punk band is just a lot of noise, he came over and he encouraged us to play, take it further out, go to the galaxies, shoot for the stars. And so we did. And that was the first time we really heard each other, was with the blessing of Eberhard Schoner, where he encouraged us to take it further, go out further. The wilder, the better. And so I never realized that Andy could play like that. And then one night, the biggest revelation of all, Sting could play bass and he could shout a bit. And that was all I needed for my punk band. But one night, the jazz singer stepped away from the microphone for a minute, and Sting stepped forward onto the microphone. He opens his mouth, and out comes a sound that broke every heart in the room. Andy and I are standing next to him thinking, what the fuck have we got here? I mean, it was almost like he was released from the cage, from the constraints of punkorama, and it just came from his heart and filled the room. And I don't need to tell your readers about that voice. We all know what kind of singing that guy could do, but that was when Andy and I found out for the first time.
It's amazing. A little while back, you announced, or it was announced, that you'd reunite another band that you played in, which disbanded in '91, which is Animal Logic. And reuniting is not such a dramatic thing these days, because we all can still live in our different cities and send tapes to each other. So that's pretty much what Animal Logic reunion amounts to. That doesn't mean that I'm not playing with Oysterhead anymore.
or doing my own thing. You know, it is a very cool thing about this modern age that many things can be true at once.
I also love the combo you and Stanley Clarke. I mean, that's quite a rhythm fundamental.
Yeah, we did a tour one summer, a jazz tour, and some of your readers might know already that one of my hobbies is to trash jazz, just because it always gets a response. If you're at a boring dinner party, you can always wake things up by saying something like, "Problem with jazz musicians is that they all suck." Whoa, you can't say that. And suddenly now we have a really great dinner party. And I actually don't mind jazz, especially when I'm playing with Stanley Clarke. And I discovered two things. One is that the only jazz that I really like is when I'm playing it. That's really great jazz. Jazz is horrible to listen to, but great fun to play. And the other thing is that the jazz audience is the best audience to play for. Actually, maybe the same as a jam band audience, because they're not there to hear the songs. They're here to see what you can do. And if you got a lot of stuff that you can do, they're real happy. Come on, another drum solo, guitar solo, more and more and more. They don't want you to step out of the way of the singer or be tasteful. They want to hear all you got, and they are very much fun to play for.
How does it feel to revisit when you talk about the Police material? How does it feel to revisit it? I mean, you've said that the studio process itself wasn't always that easy. The records were great. The studio process was sometimes...
This is the fun, easy version of the Police experience. I get to play those songs without the bass player giving me shit. And I get to light up the house with Roxanne, Message in a Bottle, Can't Stand Losing You. And I can do it any way I want. Of course, to replace those guys isn't so easy. To replace Stingo, I've got 3 soul sisters on the mic. Imagine getting one guy, that poor bastard. It's not possible. Sting, you can't compete with Sting. And Andy's the same. You can't replace Andy, except for maybe with a big ass orchestra. And so that's what this is. And I get to play those songs. We love each other and we admire each other and we love the result of our conflict. But that doesn't mean that we enjoyed the conflict. We did not enjoy the conflict, but we do appreciate the value of the work that derived from that conflict. And so it's really the best of both worlds. Sting can go out and play those songs that he wrote without World War III going on over his left shoulder. And I can go out there and play those songs as World War III.
That sounds like a fair and
it's perfect.
So let me ask one last question, if you still have the time.
Yes, I got a couple minutes.
Any other projects that we can expect from you in the near future?
Yes, but they're under wraps. They're not announced. But yes, I'm very busy. I'm always busy.
That's good to hear. Then thanks for taking the time. Thanks also for the very cool studio tour, which I appreciate to look around.
Yeah, there it is, the Sacred Grove.
Yeah, not bad. Very rare. Yeah, thanks for taking.
All right, well, thanks for listening. Hope you got a story.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a great interview. Goodbye.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.